not really spreading to the extent the mutual fund sector would like it to be. Now, what do you think, Varun, can be done to extend the reach? One, you of course said bringing down the ticket size is one option, but spreading it, bringing down the ticket size may increase the numbers, but what about the reach? I think the reach is the issue if you want to really say mutual funds are here to everybody.
Right. Very, very interesting question, Sourav. Thank you. So I have a lot of thoughts here. I will try to structure it a little bit. See, first of all, I completely agree with what Mr. Amarjit ji was saying. We are still like looking at where we were and saying that we have reached 4 crore and we are saying, okay, that's great. I'm sure this number is going to double up more before and faster than we can even realize, right? There is in any industry, or especially in our industry, which is more knowledge based, which requires a certain bit of a certain bit of distributors to which requires education, right? Which is not really taught to the end investors. We need a certain tipping point. We need an inflection point, which I think now has been reached by constantly telling people that mutual fund sahi hai. Mutual fund has become a name which people recognize. People might not be investing, but they recognize. And that itself is a tipping point, right? So, but as was one of the key things, I think, which was coming up in the last panel also, that there are distributors who are addressing different markets, different industries, different segments of users in India. We have distributors who are addressing the top of the market, which is you will find a lot of MFDs or HNI, wealth companies, which are in top tier 1 cities, T30 cities. Then you find a lot of digital companies which are primarily bottom of the pyramid, right? They are catering to users who are 500 rupees SIP, 1000 rupees SIP. But there is a large segment of middle India who need hand-holding, who needs advisory, which is still finding whom should I go to, whom should I go get this advisory from. And then they of course cannot be catered by the top tier of the of the distributors or the wealth managers, and not definitely by the digital players. So for us to reach out to that, I wholeheartedly believe that there has to be a very long tail of distributors. We don't have sufficient number of on-ground distributors, which this country desperately needs, right? Insurance, as was pointed out by Mr. Singh in the last, it has 2 million plus distributors. We, in our industry, which is less than 1 lakh. Right? So what can we do to basically increase those number of distributors? How can we enable them in the new context, right? As the way industry has evolved, how can we make this business sustainable for them so that they basically serve the end customer?
And also train them because of the
yes,
emergent technologies and the emergent trends.
Absolutely. So that is one of the key challenges we have taken up in our AMC, because we believe that end customers can be served only by a distributor. You go to UP, right? You go to any city, like I am from Ujjain. I go to Ujjain, and no one is investing online, right? There is people, if they invest online, they will only invest, let's say, like 1% of their overall net worth. As soon as it crosses a certain point where it becomes a substantial money for them, they need someone who can come and tell them where to invest, right? So I firmly believe that is the single answer, that we need to create a long tail of distributors. All the existing distributors have to start increasing and reach out to different set of investors. And we as an AMC has to, or we as a group of AMCs have to work in that direction.
Dhiraj, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd like to add one point here for sure, that I think we are missing one plot here, is that affluence. Currently, we are a low per capita country. We are just at about $2,500 per capita. The moment we reaches to 5,000, which will happen in next 4 to 6 years time, I think that would change the fabric of the society. The consumption will also be at a very different level, and the savings will also be at a different level also. So that affluence is required to get more and more participation. Right now, large part of Indian population is busy in meeting their basic needs only. So that's something, with change in the per capita, the things will change, and that's where we'll see more and more participation coming in. Of course, the reach and richness of offer has to be there to get more and more investors to participate in the mutual funds. As long as the reach is there, which is through either distributors or through the digital platforms, both will work hand in hand. My take is that it's not either or strategy. It has to be both strategies, and also richness of offer also. It has to beat the underlying comparative asset class, which is fixed deposit. Today, if you look at mutual fund AUM as a proportion of fixed deposits or total liabilities in the banking ecosystem, I think it's just about 24-25%. If 48 lakh crores, and my last memory, if my memory supports me right, it was 188 lakh crore in the banking liabilities in the banking system. And so it's just about 24%. And this is growing at, mutual fund AUM is growing at a 16% CAGR, whereas deposits have been growing at a 11% CAGR. From that point of view, I think by 2030, on an enhanced based, it would be a third of the total disposable investments that would be available in the market. So one shift from deposits to mutual fund, different asset classes in mutual fund, and on top of it, financialization of savings, money moving in from our real assets to physical assets to the financial assets. I think that's something we need to work on, and of course the distribution will help in this.
Talking about distributors and reach and regulation, therefore, one aspect, Varun, which I want you to talk about, and we can ask the other panelists as well, is about finfluencers. And you know what SEBI's thoughts are on that segment. And not all of them, mind you, are on social media. There are those who are outside also and unregulated. What is the way in which one would look at that segment of so-called finfluencers and the way the regulator has been clamping down on them?
Yeah, I'm happy finfluencers became a word. Right? एक तो डिक्शनरी खुल गई ऑक्सफोर्ड में, आई थिंक अभी finfluencers की एंट्री हो जाएगी, which is already good. B, I think the fact is, finfluencers has become a chai pe charcha for all of us, at least in the sector, on what to do, what not to do. I think that's fantastic.
May I add that Business Today was one of the only ones which did a cover story well before anybody on finfluencers, and what they're doing.
No, and I'm glad that media picked it up. I'm super happy that the regulator has picked it up. I think it's just fantastic, right? Because look, eventually somebody needs to advise, like he said, because ऐसा नहीं है कि सब लोग what's the problem? The fundamental problem our education system makes great architects, chartered accountants, engineers, doctors, AI engineers, but literally they don't teach 500 रुपए की SIP कैसे invest करनी है. कोई नहीं सिखाता. So you pass 12th, you go to IIT, you become this great scientist or whatever you want to become, but you don't know how to do 500 rupees of personal finance management. So like literally, and I think that's the root cause. Because there's a root cause, there's a deficit. Some people, in my mind, find it as a great opportunity, and there is monetization at the end of it. Let's be clear that at the end of the day, why would you do 1,000 Twitter posts? Why would you do 100 Instagram posts, set up a camera, do all the hard work? It's not cheap, by the way. Right? You ask a fin-influencer their cost, it's an expensive cost. Now, here's my thing. I'm glad it's getting regulated. I also think if regulated and channelized properly, I think it can be a great benefit for everybody. Right? I personally believe that there are very good fin-influencers, then there are very bad on the other side, and in between there are people who are trying to figure it out, who have knowledge to share. And look, India at 1.3, 1.4 billion people, we'll fool ourselves if we think sub-segmentation nahi hai. Right. That there is no small group running on Telegram, WhatsApp. Now, I think all that needs to be done, and it's a first step. I'm sure the industry will do a great job of it. I'm very, very, very proud that SEBI is our regulator. Many times we don't like it, right? It's awful, but I think the times that it's there, this topic has come. In my mind, next 2-3 years, there'll be multiple regulations, hopefully, on this topic. And we'll reach a situation where we will say, ye certified, transparent, honest influencer hai. And because now all on the exchange is under something called UCC, which is unique client code with one PAN number, I think the advantage is now, for example, if Varun wants to be an influencer, can I put my numbers out there? Yes, I can. So if somebody wants to verify, have I made a profit or not? Am I mis-selling? All those things are transparent, thanks to technology again. So my feeling is registered influencers where there is some monitoring so that they're not taking the gullible for a ride, I think is a great, great future. What we should not do in my mind is say, sab kharab hai. All this social media is nonsense. Technology is bad. Technology is too fast. Because the minute you do that, technology is not stopping. I think we will have to accept that that world out there is like water in an ocean. You can build a dam around an ocean, but I don't know how many dams you've seen lasting around an ocean, or how many have even been attempted. Right? So somewhere I think that regulation needs to become positive, and as people join, I'm sure that system will evolve. But I am happy with the regulated fin-influencer system.
Kalpen, your thoughts on that before we're running at the end of time. So a couple more questions and we might have to throw it to the audience also for a couple of them.
I have worked with Nilesh very early in my career, and I briefly worked in a company which had deep influence by Rajiv when he was the CIO. And both of them, they speak less, but what they speak, there's a lot of learning. Rajiv, I think, maybe having 12,000 followers on Twitter because he has stopped expressing a lot more these days. But whenever he used to, deep learning, as an investor I would have got. Nilesh, again, only 5 lakhs or 6 lakhs. Now, I think the quality of learning as an investor I may get from just following these two people would have been immense. It is probably 2 or 3 decades of learning which comes there. But for whatever reason, consumers would not like to follow either because they have to get more interesting. Or they need to dance or, not be what they are. And also become more simpler, which, let's say, on the other hand, a lot of younger audience who are talking the language that our consumers today relate with. So I think there is a need for fine balance. But I also feel, apart from regulators doing, and they've been doing a great job in making the industry safer, I think it is one of the safest industry for our consumers anywhere in the world, compared to any other sector also in India. And I also think a lot of onus should be on consumers in terms of deciding who should be their role models and who should they want to learn from. Because end of the day, it is...
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.